publisher and play him your song. He says, I hate your music and your hair is too long.
Well, it is a problem, I suppose. I put it down to agents and promoters. Yeah.
So I knew what I wanted, and Shell did his version and put French horns on it and everything, which I thought sounded a bit pompous. And he said, it sounds great, and he went home. Then I got the band back in the studio that night and completely re-recorded it. Instead of a French horn, I put a trombone on the end. I dragged a man from the pub who had just done a session at the studio, a trombonist.
By the time the Kinks released Lola vs. Powerman and The Money Ground, Part 1 in 1970, they were no longer the snarling young upstarts of You Really Got Me and All Day and All of the Night, bashing out three-chord anthems in the febrile heat of the British beat boom. Instead, they were seasoned veterans, hardened by success, scandal, and a singularly tumultuous relationship with the machinery that governed the popular music industry. For Ray and Dave Davies, the ever-sparring brothers at the heart of the group, the journey through the swinging 60s had soured into something more disillusioned. The product of that disillusionment was an album that pulled no punches. Lola vs. Powerman wasn't just another conceptual rock suite, it was a scathing razor-edged exposé of the recording business. And nestled near the beginning of the record, between tracks about grasping managers and the arbitrary nature of fame, was a song that drew particular ire from the very people it lampooned, Denmark Street.
The street is shaking from the top in the tools. You can hear that music play.
Denmark Street was written out of a kind of grim affection, if that makes sense, Ray Davies once reflected. It's a place of dreams, but also a kind of graveyard for them. I saw people chewed up there. I saw myself being chewed up. Denmark Street, a narrow Soho lane running between Charing Cross Road and St Giles High Street, had for decades been the British answer to Tin Pan Alley. It was where young songwriters came to flog their wares, where publishers struck dodgy deals over scratched desks and lukewarm tea, and where every hopeful with a guitar and a lyric sheet eventually found themselves elated, anxious, or often both. But by the time the Kinks came of age, the magic of Denmark Street had long started to curdle. The area had become a claustrophobic crucible of commercialism, where the primary currency was cynicism. You go to a publisher and play him your song, Davies sings on Denmark Street, his voice curling with knowing sarcasm. He says, I hate your music and your hair is too long, but I'll sign you up because I'd hate to be wrong.
You go to a publisher and play him your song. He says, I hate your music and your hair is too long.
That particular lyric, as Dave Davies later confirmed, didn't go unnoticed by the industry suits. We pissed off quite a few people with that song, he told Vulture in 2023. The Denmark Street comments about how f***ed up the music business is, it was direct, and that didn't sit well. But what are you supposed to do? We were telling the truth, or at least our truth. When the Kinks exploded onto the scene in the early 1960s, they seemed tailor-made for success.
The Kinks!
Ray's lyrics captured the restlessness of post-war British youth. Funny, sardonic, bitterly poetic, while Dave's distorted power chords pushed rock into new, heavier territories. Their early hits, including Tired of Waiting for You and A Well-Respected Man, bristled with defiance and class consciousness. But as the 60s wore on, the Kinks found themselves increasingly at odds with the industry's expectations. Their creative output became more idiosyncratic, less chart-friendly. Albums like Something Else by the Kinks and The Kinks of the Village Green Preservation Society were artistic triumphs, but commercial disappointments. There was a point where it became clear we weren't going to play the game, Dave Davies said, and the industry, well, they don't forget that. By 1965, the band had been banned from performing in the United States by the American Federation of Musicians, reportedly due to a combination of onstage antics and backstage altercations. Though the reasons were never fully explained, the ban effectively closed the door to one of the most lucrative markets in the world, and the group's relationship with management and record labels became increasingly strained. It became this war of attrition, Ray later said. Every time we tried something new or honest or a bit strange, we'd get these phone calls. Where's the single? What's this about? Are you taking the piss? Released in November 1970, Lola vs. Powerman and the Money-Go-Round, Part 1, was a concept album unlike anything the Kinks had attempted before. A pointed critique of the entire music business, it dissected every layer of the industry: publishers, managers, unions, and the fickle press. Songs like The Money-Go-Round laid bare the infuriating financial arrangements behind hit records, while Top of the Pops mocked the shallow performance of celebrity culture.
So he gave half to a foreign publisher, he took half the money that was earned in some far distant land.
But it was Denmark Street, tucked between the swagger of Lola and the melancholy of Get Back in Line, that struck the rawest nerve.
Down the way from the Tottenham Court Road, just round the corner from Old Soho.
With a ragtime piano shuffle and music hall jauntiness that belied its venom, the song painted the music publishers of Denmark Street as self-serving opportunists with no real interest in music.
On the rock and roll hit parade, daytime, nighttime, every week.
The lyrics are a cascade of contradictions, each line revealing the duality of the street's promise and its predation. He's got a friend in the business. He'll give us some time, Ray sings, mocking the kind of backdoor deals and nepotism that underpinned the industry. Maybe we'll make it, if the sun doesn't shine. In recent years, Dave Davies has taken care to clarify that the track, and the album as a whole, wasn't meant to be a takedown for its own sake. Remember, they're observations, he said. It's not categorical information. It's our viewpoint or Ray's viewpoint, but they're rooted in something real. We'd lived it. That distinction between narrative and judgment is critical. While Denmark Street bristles with contempt, it also has an air of weary affection, even nostalgia. Ray Davies, always the social chronicler as much as the rock star, imbued the song with a level of emotional ambiguity rare for protest music. We caused some anger because we had a very keen observation quality about people, what they're doing and why they're doing it, Dave noted. We knew about our family and the conditions that surrounded our working-class life. Things were happening, so you would sing about them all and how you react to them. Despite its cynicism, Denmark Street is laced with humour, a characteristic that runs through much of the Kinks' work. There's a comedic absurdity in the idea of a publisher dismissing an artist's talent but signing them anyway, just in case. It's the same tragicomic logic that defines many British institutions, disdainful, yet reliant on the very things it mocks. Life lessons are like an incredibly complicated school for us, Dave Davies mused, especially with the funny times. You don't always know what you learn in laughter and what it means to you as a person. You don't always find out straight away. Sometimes you look back at something and think it's funny. It's very revealing. That last word, revealing, is key. Denmark Street may have provoked backlash, but it also peeled away the romantic veneer of the music business. In doing so, it served not just as a critique, but as a kind of public service announcement to aspiring musicians. This is what you're walking into, the song says. Be ready. Today, Lola vs. Powerman and the Money-Go-Round, Part 1, is widely considered one of the Kinks' finest albums, a masterclass in satire, storytelling, and musical eclecticism. And Denmark Street stands as one of its most enduring statements, a song that combines wit, frustration, and resigned amusement in equal measure. The street itself has since changed dramatically. Once a hub for music shops and publishers, it has in recent years been the subject of redevelopment and gentrification. Much of the character Ray Davies wrote about has been swept away, replaced by sleek office blocks and high-end eateries. Yet the mythology remains. "There's still something about it," Ray said in a 2010 interview. "Even now, walking down there, I hear ghosts." For the Kinks, Denmark Street was never just a location. It was a symbol, the nerve centre of an industry that could inspire as easily as it could betray. It was a battleground where art and commerce met in uneasy truce. And for all its lyrical bile, the song remains a love letter of sorts to a place that made them, broke them, and made them angry enough to write something honest. In an era increasingly dominated by brand partnerships, streaming algorithms, and corporate gatekeeping, the song feels more relevant than ever. Its message, about the disposability of artists, the venality of executives, and the cost of integrity, is timeless. And in Ray Davies' bitter chuckle, still audible through the song's final refrain, we are reminded that sometimes the truth has to come in the form of a joke, or a tune, or a line that stings. "Denmark Street," he sings, "the only place I know that's worse than Soho." For the Kinks, it was both an address and a warning.